Hello, everyone. Welcome to another presentation of the platform, the Issues Room, the alternative media platform here on Facebook, YouTube, the Issues Room page, and I've already added Twitter to the lineup. Good afternoon. This is what I will consider a special broadcast. We usually don't come on Sundays, but today we thought it wise to come on because of the trending issues in Liberia involving the Liberty Party, its internal leadership crisis that is ongoing. Uh, I don't know if I should say former chairman ability or chairman ability, and the political leader who was suspended, whether she's off suspension, Yomli Kanga, and just a whole, you know, um, role of individuals in the party. And this afternoon, we thought to come here and have a conversation around what is going on, what are some of the causes, and how we, you know, could discuss the way forward for the party. My name is Volcano Shelton. Say welcome. Let me bring in my colleague, Moses descended from Delaware. Good afternoon. It's unusual to be here on Sunday.
Definitely, it is. Good afternoon, Volcano. And let me say hi to our many listeners and viewers out there. It's pleasing to be back. And this time we come to you with a special broadcast on the current political situation in Liberia. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to be here.
And I don't want people to lose hope to remind them that we will be broadcasting on Tuesday in our usual time slot, 7 p.m.
Mhm.
Eastern Standard Time and midnight. So we should be heard now in Liberia because of the time now. It should be just about 9, a little past 9 p.m.
Yeah.
in Liberia. So it is our hope that, you know, many will be able to listen because it's not bad time yet.
No.
But let's go back in the studio and bring in our special guest this afternoon, Mr. Philip B. Suah Jr. Mr. Philip B. Suah Jr. is a, I would say, founding member of the Liberty Party who's been around for years. The name has been associated with the party. In fact, he was one time confidant of the late Councillor Charles Bromskin, um, who was the founder and father of the party. Recently, he held the position of National Vice Chairman for International and Diaspora Affairs here in the U.S. But we were just talking, and you said that your position is now no more. Come in, just let's talk about this quick before we begin the conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Volcano. So just one quick correction. I came after the founding of LP as a whole, but I was a founding member of LP USA here
Okay.
in the States. Yeah. So, well, yes, thank you so much to you and Moses for inviting me to the program to speak on the issues at hand. I appreciate the gesture. And based on the message from the political leader of Liberty Party, Senator Yombi Conga Lawrence, effectively yesterday, my position went away until the party can go back to a convention and set up
Okay.
a convention planning committee, do a convention based on the Constitution. I'm no longer National Vice Chair for International and Diaspora Affairs. And the same applies to other members of the NEC, including our former chairman, Miss Ability.
Well, you just brought about that, and I wanted to throw a question at you, but I'll give Moses a chance to just give a
Yeah.
little background, Moses, about what you've gathered so far before we engage our studio guest today.
But look, even before we can take a closer look at the current situation in Liberty Party, let me just ask Mr. Suah, are you one of those elected on January the 23rd, 2021,
Yes,
when the guys assemble in Bangabong County?
yes, I was one of those elected.
Okay, okay. So,
But
predicated on,
that's the position he said is nullified as a
yeah,
result
as
of
yeah,
the political leader saying that everything is now at a
Yeah, I was
it's
elected.
everything is expired.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have consistently, follow happenings in Labor Party with the hope of understanding what is happening there and the attempts being made to resolve the internal rift. Research shows that on January the 23rd, 2021, a closed door convention was held in Bangabong County, and it was at a convention that Mr. Musa Belede, I don't know what I should call him, former or the controversial chairman of Liberal Party, was elected with along with other officers. And then we also learned that the former chair of Liberal Party, the opposition Liberal Party, Senator Steve Zago of Lofa County, did not attend the convention, and he did not participate in the process as well.
Well, I think he attended. Mrs. Zago attended. He did not contest, but he participated in the process leading to that convention.
Was the elections held behind closed door? Because
Um,
it's a process mean that you got a whole closed door convention. What's the hell behind closed door?
I don't know what that means. Closed doors.
Okay, that's what we have in the media.
Yeah, I
Means
don't
that
know
the
what that
process was
means.
being open. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So now let's look at the crisis in your party. It goes back several months. The whole thing started with the allegation made by some members of the National Executive Committee headed by the political leader Yom Kanga, claiming that Chairman Belede and some of his supporters allegedly made alteration in the Liberal Party 2015 constitution, and that alteration was made unauthorized. Following the alteration, the altered constitution was submitted to the National Elections Commission. Then the situation of the Welcome program, which was organized by Mr. Belity and others in honor of the political leader or
Hmm.
the standard bearer of the Alternative National Congress, the ANC, Mr. Alexander Cummings.
Yeah.
Uh, the political leader, Yombly Kanga Lawrence, and others were opposed to that. But again, Mr. Benedict says that a decision was reportedly taken by their National Executive Committee, and so he and the others decided to go ahead. Another allegation which has also been levied against Mr. Benedict and his supporters is that when he chaired Liberal Party, he was fond of making divisive. He made a lot of divisive decisions against members of the Liberal Party. So these are the training issues. These are the allegations against Mr. Benedict, and predicated on that. Um, Yesterday, the political leader of the party, Yombi Kanga, acting in keeping with Article 6 of the Liberal Party Convention, of the Liberal Party Constitution, which empowers the political leader or the standard bearer to be the chief spokesperson and representative of the party. And the law also provides that the standard bearer or the political leader, in consultation and collaboration with the National Executive Committee, shall formulate policies and procedures to implement decisions of the National Convention, called Special Convention as provided for in Article 8 of the Liberal Party Constitution, and take other such actions and proper measures that may be necessary to advance the best interests of the party. as a result of that political support or that power. Yesterday, it was announced in Liberia that the convention which elected Mr. Billy has been nullified, and as a result, Mr. Billy's chairmanship was automatically nullified, which implies that he's no longer chairman of Liberal Party. And this action came after Mr. Billy and some members of the NEC on Wednesday of last week suspended the political leader and 15 other members, senior executives of the Liberal Party. And Mr. Bility and his supporters claim that they took the action because the political leader, Yombi Kanga, and others failed to pay dues. This is where we are. What's your thoughts?
Wow. So you laid out a lot of complaints or comments. So let me start with the issue of dues, and then maybe as we go along, you can bring other issues out because you mentioned quite a lot from January until now.
Mhm.
So
So
let me just put you back to if we look at it the timeline. Let's start with first the document I was sent to the NEC
okay,
that
Yeah,
was altered. Let's start from
yeah.
there because due is the latter part. But let's
okay,
start from that, yeah, from that
okay.
document.
So the use of the word altered has created all kinds of issues, right? So
Mhm.
whether you say altered, minor change, whatever phrase you use to describe what transpired, to me, that's not as important as what reality is. And the reality of our Constitution is that what was agreed upon at the Banga Convention was not the same thing that was submitted to the NEC, not 100%. The
Okay.
language that Moses read earlier with regards to the powers of the political leader is different. The one that was agreed to at the convention said the political leader, in consultation with the NEC, shall do whatever Moses just read,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
The version that was at the NEC was the opposite. It said the National Executive Committee, in consultation or collaboration with the political leader, shall do X, Y, and Z. Now, on the surface, that seems to be minor, right? So again, whether you say it was altered, changed, it doesn't matter to me. But what that does is it takes the power that was agreed upon at the convention, that power that belonged to the political leader, it took that power and deposited that power into the National Executive Committee, of which Mr. Ability was chairman at the time. So, based on the constitution that he submitted to the NEC, he decided to act upon things that he wanted, his vision for the party, right? And he was basing that on the constitution that he has submitted. So at some point between then and now, Ms. Ability went ahead to restructure the party, the different party structures, right? He had initiated a process to make changes to the party structure because he felt that language gave him the authority to do so and not the political leader. So he ran with what was in the constitution that he submitted. And that was the point of contention from the get go. As early as few days after the convention, the political leader um, understood that she had to review the changes, all right, that were made at the convention by protocols, right? And largely because the person who presides over the convention is given the mandate to ensure that the documents that come out of that convention represents The discussions represents the full output of those who were at the convention. That's part of the role of the presiding officer. She was the presiding officer. Now, when the Constitution was drafted by that body, days after the Constitution was drafted, I think the election laws is within 10 days. After that was done, the presiding officer reviews the minutes, compare the minutes with the final draft, validates that the information contained therein is accurate, and then the process of submitting the Constitution to the Election Commission begins. Now, that's the process. What happened after the convention, the Constitution was never provided to the political leader or the presiding officer of the convention. She did not review the minutes. She did not review the Constitution. She did not validate that the Constitution that would later be submitted to the NEC was what was discussed at the convention. So Mr. Ability and the Secretary General, Mr. Martin Kula, submitted the Constitution to the NEC without reverting to the political leader or the presiding officer of the convention. So that was the contention. So Madam Senator Lawrence was unaware of that language change. She's unaware. So she started asking for the Constitution. Hey, I need the documents to review, to make sure everything is okay. She didn't get the results. Months later, she realized she had someone provided information to her, and I'm not really sure how she heard of it, but she got news that this Constitution had already been submitted to the NEC, and so she decided to write the NEC for the version of the Constitution that they had, so she could compare with what copy she had, that was discussed at the convention. The NEC complied, and this sent her the Constitution that was submitted by Mr. Ability and Mr. Kula. She then set up a committee to look at both versions of the Constitution and determine where things may or may not be different. That's when that committee discovered that the language had been, however you want to call it, altered,
tampered.
Yeah, there we go. That's the word, tampered with. And so therein began the issue of let's change this language because that's not what was contained. And initially there was pushback that no, the Constitution that we submitted is correct. And on the other side, it was no, the Constitution you submitted was not correct. You didn't follow the process. And now we have issue with the content. So those were the two sticky issues. One, the process to submit the Constitution wasn't followed because you did not revert to the political or the presider of the convention to validate that information. So that was a procedural error. Then you have content error where the documents didn't match 100%, right? That language in there regarding the function of the political leader was different than what the folks at the convention had agreed upon. So those were the two issues on the Constitution.
So nothing else came out of that. It was just that they took the power from the political leader and put it in the National Executive Committee hands, rather than the way it was.
Correct.
So they flipped it. So, but the rest of the Constitution was then in good shape.
For the most part, yes, I would say yes. But the bulk of it, yes.
So then, let me ask you a question. What do you think could have prompted such action, reportedly on the part of former Chairman Ability?
I don't know. And quite honestly, when it happened, for me being inside, I felt like, hey, okay, there's something there that's different. Let's change it. All right. That was my knee-jerk reaction. Like, okay, well, let's bring it back to, square zero, redo it and resubmit it. No big deal. Whether it was intentional or unintentional or change, I didn't really.
Did he say anything to that? Was he?
Not that I'm aware of. Not that
Okay,
I'm aware of.
were you in Banga for that convention, or you
No,
were
not in
voted
person.
here in the
No,
States?
not in person. No.
Okay, so you were voted in abstention.
Absentia. Absentia. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay. But look, Mr. Bennett has denied that he ever made any alteration. Even yesterday, I listened to him. He was in an interview with one of the media outlets in Liberia. He contends that he didn't make any alteration. There's nothing. There's no evidence to show that any alteration was made.
And he
And
was
that's what.
very emphatic. He was very emphatic at with that point that there was a small, I believe, meeting held at Farmington,
Yeah.
because after they had this scuffle over the document as to the tampering and changing of language, they, I think, met at Farmington, and they all signed. And he said Yombly signed that document, and there was nothing raised to that effect that he had made any alteration.
Well, you see, and that's where we get into,
Who
splitting
said who?
hairs, right?
Okay.
I'm not accusing anyone of making alterations. What I'm saying is the document that was agreed upon at the convention is not the document that the NEC received. Whether it was done intentionally, it was altered, it was changed, it was a mistake, that's not what I'm concerned with. My concern is they're different. And if you look at the Farmington Agreement, I have a copy of the Farmington Agreement here. That was one of the change that came out of the Farmington Agreement, right? That language had to be adjusted, whatever the terminology you feel comfortable using. Largely because what NEC had was the reverse. So Ms. Ability says he didn't alter the document. I'm not accusing him or anyone of altering the document. I'm just saying the document that we have at NEC is not what was agreed upon at the convention.
Okay.
So let me come in here because someone is asking right now, when Moses referencing what you call him, ability as former. You also being former in your capacity, you're not raising any alarm about it. Do you think that Yumbly has the authority? Because he in that conversation with uh, the journalist, he said, "What is the reliance? What is Yumbly depending on to say that I am, no more chairman?" On the flip side, he had reliance when he talked about the due payment.
You're muted, Volcano.
Yeah. We're not hearing you, Volcano.
Oh,
You muted.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you
Okay.
can hear me now. Sorry. But I was saying, in a nutshell, that he is wondering where is the reliance of Yumbly. Does the Constitution support her action or to nullify a whole convention? So that's where the noise is coming from.
Yeah, so in order to understand where she has the constitutional authority, you have to look at a few things. So the complaint that initiated, the nullification of the convention occurred in January. Right after the convention, one of the partisans who contested complained that there were procedural errors leading to the convention, and for that reason, the convention itself should not be valid. That was a complaint that occurred in January, I think a day or so after the convention, or maybe even during the convention.
And so no
So
one
he,
took action.
huh?
No one took action in
Yeah, I'm
that
going through
case.
the process. So he
Okay.
filed
But
that complaint.
but but then why was no action taken then to
That's
correct the
what I'm going
problem?
through now. I'm going through now.
Okay.
I'm going to give you the
The
chronology of,
chronological.
of
Okay.
what
Okay.
happened.
Okay.
So he filed that complaint in January to the political leader. The political leader communicated with Mr. Azango and said, look, you filed this complaint. Let's use the internal mechanism within the party to discuss your complaint and find resolution. Mr. Azango disagreed because he said if we use the internal mechanism, it's the same people he's complaining about who would then be making a decision on his complaint. So that was the back and forth with Mr. Azango. Now,
Okay.
why it took him from January, when he filed his complaint, and however long it took him and the political leader to discuss this back and forth, up to August. It was in August that Mr. Azango decided to file his complaint to the National Elections Commission. Okay, so he filed his complaint to the National Elections Commission, and I think I have a document here that lists it. I can find it if you need me to be more detailed. But he filed a complaint with the National Elections Commission in August, went through the first meeting with the political officer, and I think the decision there was for him, and Mr. Billington was in attendance, or representative from Liberty Party was in attendance at that first meeting. And the political officer told Mr. Azango to utilize the party's internal mechanisms. Mr. Azango then filed an appeal to the Board of Commissioners at NEC because he didn't want to agree with that. And I think the Board of Commissioners also concurred with the political officer that Mr. Azango needed to come back and follow the party's internal mechanism. All right. So that's the process he was going through from August until sometime, and I'm going to look up the date while you're asking different questions. You have a document that you have it. And then he decided to, at some point, the Board of Commissioners told him, hey, you have to go back. At this point,
are you talking about Steve Zago?
No, Emmanuel Azango.
Okay, Emmanuel Azango.
Sorry, Azango,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not Zago. Emmanuel Azango. So at that point, Azango and his lawyers, because he had hired the services of a legal team, his lawyers took the decision of the board and they rewrote the political leader, because that's what the board told him. You have already filed a complaint to the presider of the convention in January. She has not made a decision on your case, yet you're taking your case to another jurisdiction to make a decision on it. The election commission stated, we cannot make a decision on this case because where you initiated this complaint, there hasn't been a judgment. So go back and take your complaint there. So he came back to Senator Lawrence. Remember, he filed a complaint in August, and he worked through the process with the NEC until November. Okay. And it was November, sometime past November 15, that he came back to Senator Lawrence with this letter from NEC in his revised complaint. And at that time, Senator Lawrence then took his complaint, set up a committee to investigate the validity of his claims. That committee, an independent committee, headed by a lawyer, looked at the complaints that Mr. Azango filed, looked at the Constitution, the 2015 Constitution, under which he had filed his claim, because we used the 2015 Constitution as a basis to host the convention that brought forth the 2021 Constitution, right? So Mr. Azango filed his complaint that the party didn't follow the 2015 Constitution. So this committee went into the 2015 Constitution, exhausted the procedures, interviewed some of the stakeholders involved in the process, and this committee sent a report to Senator Lawrence and said, basically, Mr. Azango's claims are true. These are the things that weren't followed leading up to the convention. And one of the big ones, I think, was a quorum. There wasn't a quorum to host the convention based on the 2015 Constitution. So that's what they took. So Senator Lawrence then took that committee's report and used that as a basis to do what she did yesterday.
In terms of nullifying the overall convention. But then so she had to wait for the legitimacy to take place, because I'm from what I'm hearing here, Mr. Azango had gone through the legal proceedings to get to this point. But what happened with all other things being equal? Why did it have to drag this long, almost a year now? So people are thinking that this is all about, I mean, like the internal rift is just ongoing, and it's not just that one piece of evidence. It's more than that.
Okay.
And Yeah.
So I
Go
don't
ahead.
know why it took Mr. Azango, and I got to pronounce his name a little clearer for others.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not
So
Zago,
people are
but
concerned. Yeah.
Azango.
Mm,
But Emmanuel Azango, I can't explain why it took him between January to August, right, to file this complaint. I know he and the political leader had some discussions when he filed that initial complaint in January, some back and forth on how to handle his complaint. So I don't know.
Okay.
I didn't communicate with Mr. Azango on his case, but I know in August he filed a complaint to the Elections Commission. And that was long before most of what we have seen, transpired.
So
You know, so
in clarity, you are saying now that the decision by the political leader yesterday is predicated on the legal action of Mr. Azango. Is that what
yes,
I'm hearing?
correct. That's the
Look,
basis of her
and
decision.
so for Canon, let me just come in a little bit quickly on that. If you take a closer look at uh the Liberal Party 2015 Constitution, which the political leader quoted, Article 6 and Article 8 give her that authority, and it is clearly stated in Article 8 of the Constitution, it empowers her to act, uh, to take decisions that will advance the interest of the party, and predicated on what been happening within the Liberal Party, which the executive committee, including herself, concluded that those things, or what been happening, were not in the interest of the party. I think it was based on that the action was taken, and
Okay.
so the chairman's position was reversed. The actions that led to his election was also notified.
Okay. But let's
Mhm.
come. Let's fast track and move forward.
Yes.
Then more of the issues started to perseverate when you look at it coming from the perspective where the party was headquarters was being used by one of the other political leaders within the CPP, and
Yes.
accordingly, the chair, or rather the political leader and some of the internals didn't want that to happen. And yet, Mr. Billity felt as chairman, he had the power to bring a rally or whatever, a program of Mr. Alexander Cummings at the Liberty Party headquarters. Can you just make some clarification on that?
Yes. So just before I jump into that, I just want to just clarify again that the nullification of the convention was based on the report. And the focus of the report was the convention planning committee did not follow the 2015 constitution, did not have the right quorum. So the number of delegates that should have been present at the convention were not present, right? We did not have the quorum to launch the convention. Now,
Okay. Hmm.
when you speak about the use of the party headquarters, I want to just preface my response with I personally have nothing against Mr. Alexander Cummings becoming president. I will support a President Cummings. I will support a President Boycott because I believe either of the two can produce better results than what we have. It doesn't mean, I don't have issues with, with either candidate. It's just I feel like they would provide something better than what we have. So, having said that, the issue of Mr. Cummings using our headquarters, I, in principle, don't disagree with the use of any of Liberty Party's facilities, by anyone in the CPP. We are a team, and I think it's acceptable to do so. What I disagree with is the process leading to that decision, right? Normally, if you are inviting someone to use your party headquarters, you have to bring that request to the leadership team. You have to notify the political leader of the party. I mean, that's courtesy. That's also following the structure of the party. Now, neither one of those were done. Well, The political leader was not notified. The executive committee was not notified until very late in the process, after all the work had been done, and we started hearing rumors of this thing and started asking questions. Then we got an invitation. So the first I heard of this was a Thursday, was a Friday, the Friday before, the week before the convention. So I think the occasion occurred, not convention, the occasion occurred on the 25th of October, if I'm not mistaken. So the Friday before that is when I started hearing stuff in a general chat room. So folks started asking questions. Saturday morning, I get an invitation from the Secretary General of the party that, hey, we're going to have a meeting on Monday to discuss the use of the party's headquarters. It didn't say Mr. Cummings did this, nothing, just use of the party headquarters in similar words. So Monday, we get to the meeting, and I was the first to ask the question of our former chairman in the meeting. When did Mr. Cummings, request use of the party's headquarters? Because now we're 2 days from this event, and I know it wouldn't take 2 days to plan an event of such nature. So it told me that those decisions had already been made in advance of this meeting, right? And the executive committee is the committee that should be able to look at that request, discuss that request, give permission for that request to be honored, because that authorizes the chairman now to go back to whoever and say, yes, we can do this, or no, we cannot. The executive committee, once the decision is made, can then notify the political leader, or at the same time that, hey, this is what we're discussing, Madam Political Leader, and this is what we're thinking. How can we work together? That's how you make decisions in a political party. You got to have that synergy. None of that was done. Now, what we later found out, right, that ANC had actually done what they're supposed to do. They formally requested the use of the party's headquarters on October 7th. That's what we heard afterwards. ANC leaders posted that they requested that on October 7th. The political leader was in the country at the time of that request. She did not leave the country. She went to Ghana, I think, for a few days around the 15th to the 17th. I'm not sure the specific date. So she was in the country after ANC had made the request. No one told her, no one provided any information. We also got information later. I got a meeting agenda that allegedly ANC and Liberty Party people had a meeting on October 19th. Long before October, long before our meeting, the NEC meeting. So if you have a request from ANC, you don't start planning an event, engaging with them on an event, without bringing it to the leadership team to first understand the request and then make a decision that would authorize you to begin planning. Mm-hmm. None of that was done. So we get to the meeting, and myself and a few others were there, and we voted against it. Now, I didn't vote against the use of the headquarters. I want to reemphasize, because I'm not opposed to that. I voted against the fact that we didn't follow the process leading to that decision, right? That's what I voted against. So I said no. It wasn't appropriate to do that because we didn't follow the protocols. And at that meeting, the chairman did not invite all of the members of the executive committee to the meeting. He selected few people and invited them to the meeting. That's not quorum. The executive committee is comprised of 30 filled positions. It's 31 positions, but only 30 of them are filled. One of them's vacant, right? So the quorum for 30, you got to have at least half. That's what the Constitution says, at least 15. At that meeting, I think we were 14. Okay, 14. So we didn't have quorum. Some folks were intentionally not invited to the meeting. It wasn't an error, or they just didn't show up. They just didn't get an invitation to the meeting, as has been customary for most of the meetings of the NEC. Now, there are other things that have occurred over the past months that some of us have kept quiet on because we chose to resolve internal issues internally. And it's the use, or I should say the misuse, of the National executive committee's name. There are several statements between January up until as recent as a few weeks ago or a couple of weeks ago, where there would be statements that come from our former chair with remarks that executive committee, all of us, maybe some executive committee members were aware of that, but the entire body, was not aware of it. And it would say National Executive Committee. And I'm like, I'm seeing it for the first time on social media or elsewhere. That's what I mean. So I had, most times all throughout the year, when I disagreed with the chairman, I respected the office. So I would reach out to the chairman personally offline, WhatsApp. We would communicate. I would express my strong disagreements. And that's it. I didn't go public with it. I would pick up the phone and call the chairman and say X, Y, and Z. And we would go back and forth. There were times he conceded. There were times I'm like, okay, you know what? Let's go along with it, because that's how it should be, right? He's the chairman of the party. And so we respect the office of the chairman. Now, fast forward, he continued doing this until the use of the party's headquarters. So then I began to formally write my disagreements. So I wrote the chairman 2 or 3 formal letters that I, shared with the political leader, CC the political leader in the advisory council to start registering those things formally, because it seemed at that time, he was not flowing, learning from what I felt were errors, right? And so I documented those and presented that to the chairman. And some of that included this particular point of inviting all of the NEC members to meetings so we can deliberate. Okay, so that's where we are.
Okay, so Mr. Suah, from what I'm hearing, it seems to suggest that Mr. Benedict has been having problem in adhering to communication protocol, leadership protocol, and the Liberia Party. Is there any reason why he chose to do things his own way?
That I don't know. Let's give another example here for this recent suspension, right? And I'll start with the previous suspensions before we get to the last one. So you may have heard that he had suspended 2 members of the party, Daniel Sandu and Sandra Dillon, right? That was months ago. Yeah, months ago.
What was the premise?
Well, he said they were, I think there's a committee, which I'm going to explain, that investigated and found them guilty of either disrespect to him or insults or things of that nature. I don't know the exact words, but it was suspended. So here's the thing. The party's constitution states that before there are any suspension or expulsion, you must consult with the National Advisory Council. This is an 11-person committee that's made up of, they call them eminent partisans in our party. So if you've been a former legislator, former influencer, vice tenor bearer, you make part of this committee. So the intent of it was to have these experienced individuals, people with history in the party, discuss some of these things so you can resolve them in an amicable way before you suspend anyone. That procedure was not followed. Now, the committee that was put together to investigate these complaints when because Mr. Billiter raised both of the first suspensions, he was the complainant, right? So he complained against Dillon and Sando. So this committee that was set up investigated the case and came up with a finding. To their credit, that's, at the time, that was the task they were given. So the same committee that investigated and passed judgment, the same members of the committee voted to implement their decision to suspend, right? The person who complained, Mr. Ability, presided over the very meeting that suspended the individuals he was complaining about. So it's like you're hiring an officer to investigate the case. After the officer investigates the case, it goes to court. The officer then prosecutes the case. And while he's prosecuting the case, The officer then sits on the jury box to vote guilty or innocent on the person that he has investigated, prosecuted, and so that is not democratic. That didn't follow the procedure. Those are the first two. The most recent suspensions, series of suspensions, which included the political leaders' suspensions. So I was put on the list, right, for this quote unquote due payment. Um, so I was put on the list, and at first I laughed. It's like that's kind of strange because I paid my dues, right?
Okay.
Not only did I pay my dues, I was the one who initiated the due payment, a while back, right? It's like, hey, we got to pay dues. Okay. And that was validated yesterday. If you listen to the other show, the treasurer said, yeah, Phil was the one who kept coming. Hey, I need to pay my dues. I need to pay my dues. And so I paid my dues. I started talking about it mid-year, and we started having discussions about due payment across, hey, posting to pay dues or whatever. And I finally paid those dues after reaching out to the treasurer, I think in September, because I saw the receipt, my deposit slip I kept, when I made a deposit into that account, I kept the receipt and then I got confirmation. So September I made the payment. So I see my name on the list that I'm suspended. No complaints. I saw it online. I didn't bother to even complain about it. I left it, no big deal. My conscience was clear. I didn't have to chase anyone. So fast forward, the list is published, the protocols for suspension again. So you're going to suspend someone for not paying dues. Before that person is suspended, that person is still legally and constitutionally a member of the executive committee, right? Even after suspension, they're still a member. But before suspension, until you can suspend them, their functions, they can still carry out the functions. None of the folks were invited to meeting. So the meeting invite went out to a few people, right? I think there were maybe 11 or 12 in the meeting. And those people then suspended the 13 or 14 or 15 people from the executive committee. So at what point did we decide not to invite the entire executive committee to make a decision to suspend some members of the committee? So that process wasn't followed. So you cannot suspend someone, who is part of that committee without inviting that person to the meeting, because up until the time you made the decision to suspend, that person's discussion should have been part of the process.
And was there any formal reminders, due
No,
payment?
there's
If
no
you don't
meeting
pay,
invitation. Zero.
yeah.
Zero. Because I'm part of the executive committee. I didn't get any invitation to the meeting. I was also suspended in the meeting. I didn't get any invitation. Although I had paid my dues, I didn't get an invitation to the meeting. Same as the others who were suspended. No invitation, right? And then also, like I mentioned earlier, before you suspend, you shall consult the advisory council. That wasn't done either, right? So not only did he not have the authority to suspend because there was no quorum, right? The executive committee is comprised of 30 field positions. To have quorum, you must have at least 15. And my understanding of those who voted, they were somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 to 13, somewhere in that neighborhood. I think one abstained and 11 voted to suspend. So you got 11 voting to suspend, 13, 14, or 15 people. I think there were 15 of us on that list, right? It just doesn't add up, it just doesn't add up.
Thank you.
So
If you just joining us, welcome to the Issues Room. We're at the intermission. We'd like to remind you, our viewers and listeners, this is a special broadcast. We're broadcasting here today, Sunday at 4 p.m. into later on. Our studio guest is Mr. Philip B. Suah Jr. Mr. Suah is a member of the Liberty Party. He's been a member since 2007. In fact, he's one of the founders of the USA branch of Liberty Party. Recently, he held the position of National Vice Chairman for International and Diaspora Affairs of the Liberty Party. Unfortunately, since yesterday, he lost his portfolio because of the nullification of the 2015 convention, or rather 2021 convention that brought him to power, which accordingly was not constitutional and keeping in line with the Liberty Party 2015 Constitution. We want to welcome all of you folks here. Some of you are Kandakai Masale II will say, good afternoon, welcome. Thomas Awaji, one of our uh, avid viewers and supporter and listener. Theo N. Sompon Jr., welcome to the platform here this evening. Uh, we want to welcome River Says Pro. River Says Pro is in Wisconsin. We say good evening. Florence Kingsley. Just share the link, share the page. D Banks, we encourage you guys. We'll be back here on Tuesday for our regular broadcast. This conversation, you've laid a lot of, and I see a lot of, stuff going on here. But from my perspective, do you see this as coming from, and I don't want to be speculative, but just understanding things. Do you think there's an inside, they call it the inside job, to break up the CPP, to break up the Liberty Party, and just throw a bombshell in the cohesiveness, because we're coming to the political seasons, and sure, if you people are still in a disarray and wrangling over minor issues, then of course you're going to miss the bigger picture. But do you see this as planted somehow internally,
Well, I don't
and
know.
with external influence? Let me
Yeah,
put it that
well,
way.
we hear a lot of rumors and stories, like you have just stated. So I don't have any evidence or facts that I could present to you and say this is it. But that's all at play. This is politics, right? If it benefits the CDC, they would use it to their advantage. So I mean, we can't be naive about it. So regardless of motive or if it's intentional or unintentional, I think we need to do better. This is the thing that bothers me the most because we have not spoken about the policies that would bring change to Liberians. That's what Liberians want to know. What can CPP do differently? What policies can we do? And even from the very formation of the CPP, at the time I was chairman of Liberty Party USA, so I was part of CPP USA. That was what we discussed. The folks on here, the ANC folks, and myself, and the UP folks. It's like, hey, we need to work together to focus on policy, right? That's what's going to set us apart from this government. What can we do differently? How are we going to increase revenue, right? We need to do a lot of things for the country. How are we going to decrease expenditure, right? Because you want to work on both sides of the balance sheet, right? You want to be able to increase your revenue, but you got to look for ways to be lean as a government, be more efficient as a government. What are some of the things we can work together? To me, in my opinion, that was one of the mistakes of the CPP. And I'm not blaming the leaders because we are all part of the problem. Those who are on social media insulting Mr. Cummings on one hand, insulting Mr. Boyka on another hand, all of us are part of that problem because we take the discussion from the substantive issue that people care about and we put it to the thing that we're dealing with now, right? So we have a government now that has almost doubled our debt. All right. When this government came in, we were about $874 million in debt, which is already bad for a country, that we have. And now 4 years later, we're at 1.5 billion with a B in debt, just in 4 years. So at this rate, by the time he completes his tenure in office, he would have effectively doubled the country's debt in 6 years, right?
Okay.
Not only that, we're faced with an economy, a global economy that is impacting countries like Liberia because we rely heavily on exports and we're exporting traditional materials, raw materials, right? Economies are changing. The global economy is evolving into so many different ways, and we need to be able to prepare ourselves for the next, whatever the export revolution is. What are we exporting? We need to look at how do we take the little resources that we have now and strengthen our labor force. If you look at some of the countries, right, that have benefited from growth, exponential growth over however many years, you look at, Singapore, even China, what have they done? The small investments, the small opportunities they have, they poured it into the human capital. You can't
Yeah.
develop the country without people. All right.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Councilor Brunson always used to say, remember,
This is
it's the
what.
human resources, right?
Mhm.
We have all the natural resources, but what gets us there, the human resources. Because if we have the opportunity to build our roads, let's assume that you had a magic wand, you can build
Thank
roads
you.
in 3 months. You just need to wait it. Who's going
Yeah.
to build the roads? Who are, do we have enough Liberians with the skill set to build the roads? And I'm not talking the business owners. I'm talking about the person who's going to do all the technical work. Guess what? Who's going to benefit? We're going to bring in Ghanaians. I'm not against that. Other people come in to help. But wouldn't it be better if we had a way to get our people trained? Who's going to
Mr.
build the
Suah,
homes?
that's
Right?
that's 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 very insightful, Mr. Suah. Let's look at Musa Belede a little bit. From what I'm hearing from you, it appears that Musa Belede is reportedly a law unto himself in Labour Party. And the question most of your critics will ask is, why did you guys choose to elevate someone who has reported integrity problem? Uh, Anyone taking a closer look at Musa ability would rather keep wondering why was he even elected, as chairman of your party.
Good question.
Musa Belede, let's look at his profile. Musa Belede is a career businessman, and he's involved with the sale of petroleum products in Liberia. He's the owner of Simrex, an oil and gasoline company. In 2019, FIFA, the Federation of Football Association, banned Musa Belede for 10 years and fined him more than 500,000 US dollars. In the same year, Mr. Belede was also blocked as a FIFA presidential candidate after the Court of Arbitration uh, for sport upheld a ruling that he failed an integrity check. Mr. Belete is former president of the Liberia Football Association. In May of 2015, FIFA authorized a forensic audit of the LFA accounts. Then FIFA established that the LFA made series of payments to businesses owned by Mr. Belede. So there was this concern about conflict of interest.
So Moses,
In 20,
in a
yes,
nutshell, the man has a
Yeah.
thing that carried on. Let's just
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I
no,
get the point.
I just wanted to look at this guy
Yeah,
raption,
and you're saying that, and you're saying here that the Liberty Party, who thrive on integrity,
integrity. We have such
Councilor
a man
Brunson
as
was
chairman.
And
Yeah.
I get
always
the point. So that's a good
so
question. Let me answer. So this is the thing. This is the issue. So everything you raise, they're all legitimate points, right? What as an institution we have pride ourselves in is following the rule of law. That's true. That's our foundation.
Mhm.
I personally did not oppose Mr. Ability. I did not campaign or support him. I just didn't oppose him because some of those very concerns came up and I asked questions, right?
Yeah.
And I did not get, you know, answers that said Mr. Ability was convicted. things that you could use to say, okay, well, that would preclude him from, from running for office. And this is just me. I don't know about others who, who voted.
But let me just add this quick so you can it builds the momentum.
Okay.
Billy did came in the party with money. Billy did talked about renovating the party headquarters. Billy did talked about buying pickups for the party. Billy did talked about spending almost more than $1 million on the party. Did that give foundation to the fact that now this guy has money, so let's put him in some higher position? And is
Well, I
that
don't know.
coming from you
I think, I
specifically?
think, I think Billard came into the party 2016, 2017, right? Just before the campaign, right?
Hmm.
Mhm.
So he had already provided whatever resources he did, and I can admit that he did provide a lot of resources through our 2017 campaign. A lot,
And the
he
reason
made.
I said this is because then it turns the blind eye from integrity. It turns
Of course,
Well,
yeah.
I don't think it turns a blind eye, right? Again, what you're saying is you have information that says he lacks authority, I mean integrity. What we don't have as an institution is validity to the claims that have been made to say this man cannot contest. What
Okay.
you're suggesting to us is because we have heard things about him, that means we can preclude him from running for elections. And that's not how democratic institutions work. If Mr. Ability was guilty of something that would preclude him from running for office, I think that would have come up. But everything you have stated, the FIFA ban, for example, I think the information that came out, I heard that he appealed. I don't know what became of it or what happened. So even the issue with LFA, he came out also and presented information in the public that LFA had owed him money and not the other way around. And he showed letter and LFA didn't rebut. So there were a lot of things that people said. I mean, I got friends who called me, right? And what you just said, they did 3 times, right? They said, why? And I kept asking the question, okay, so but what can you provide me that will preclude him from running for office? Because if you came as Liberty Party and say, Musa, you can't run for office, Musa goes to court and sues you because he has the right to. Now you're violating the man's right because of your perception that he is not a person of integrity. That is not something you can prove in court. So
But
it's a
But
difficult
Suad,
thing.
let me come in quick.
but
What do you think that all of this would have gone this far if Councillor Bronskin was alive?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I can't comment on that. What I
But
can
knowing the
comment.
character, knowing the man you work with,
No,
you work
that's
with
what I'm
him.
coming to. I can't
Yeah.
comment
but
on
look,
that because that would be me, just going off of, my, nothing substantive because he's not around now. But what I can tell you, when he was alive, right, Musa Bilade actually ran the campaign in 2017. He was a campaign manager for
Hmm.
Councilor Bromsky, right? So if that was an issue, or that was an issue, the integrity thing was an issue. Mr. Billy will not be a campaign manager, right? You won't make him a campaign manager.
but
Even after being a campaign manager, Mr. Billy later became the head of the advisory council while Councilor Bromsky was alive. You got to understand when look. I get it. I understand exactly what Moses is saying, but this democracy that we're trying to live for is very difficult to implement because there are a lot of gray areas sometimes where you're like, okay, do we follow the law? Do I follow my instinct? If I follow
but
my
look,
instinct and someone files a lawsuit, how does that work? Am I violating another man's freedom, another man's right because of what someone else has said? Those are the things that you have to look at when you're dealing with institutions like these.
The
but look,
lines are
Suah,
open, so you call us. You can begin calling in. The number is 404-272-2808. Let's engage Mr. Suat. Again, the lines are open, so go ahead and put your calls through. Coming, Moses.
yeah, Mr. Suah, look, let's look at the issue of integrity. As an opposition political party, you are in this race because you want to make a change. And so, if you will have someone at the top of your party who has image problem, who has credibility problem, won't that dampen the chances of the Liberal Party? Because ability has become a distraction. Don't
Well,
you agree?
The whole episode this year has been a distraction. I won't
I
disagree.
mean, Benetton himself as an individual giving his rap sheet.
Well,
I mean, if you look at even ability locally with the Liberian government, the case which led to the impeachment of Cabinet Janet, the former associate justice, ability is also linked to that. We're
yeah,
talking about
again,
over $31 million. Over
Moses,
$31 million was
Moses,
that was yes,
I think the issue here. Let's do it
yeah.
on the trending issues rather than Billy as a character. He's made a point clear that there is nothing sophisticated to incriminate Billy. Even though most of
The
these
records
people,
are there. The
yeah,
yeah,
records
but
are
but
there.
where
Does
is
but
he
not
his
found
party doesn't
guilty?
see it
that
that
doesn't
way.
qualify.
Let me bring this caller in quick. Okay, please, the caller, are you there?
Yeah, yes, I'm yes. For Channel.
Okay. Oh yeah, our man River says Pro, welcome. Let's do this quick. We have Mr. Philip Suah Jr. He is a big time member of the Liberty Party. His position. Hold on one second there. Let me take this caller and tell him out to hold. The caller, Theo Sampon, please hold. I'll come back to you. All right, go ahead, River says Pro.
Hello, Mr. Swag. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Yes, we do.
Okay. First of all, I think elect Councilor Charles Bronski had a vision for this party, and this is not it. All that is left of this party is like a shadow. With that said, I was just listening to Dylan a few minutes ago on Spawn TV, and he specifically warned. He had a message for the ANC, and he said ANC should not be enhancing trouble, because they are all part of, you guys are all part of the collaboration. And he singled out ANC. So can you elaborate what, I know you can't get into Dylan's head, but he said when your house is burning, when your neighbor's house is burning, you got to make sure you got to help. You don't be the one inflaming it. So he mentioned ANC. So is that something, you have something to say about what did he specifically target ANC as enhancing trouble into the Liberty Party rather than CDC or any other party?
All right, thank you, River says. Let me
Thank
take the
you.
next caller before you come in. All right, yeah.
All right.
All right. Theo Sampon. Good evening.
Yeah,
Welcome to the issues room.
thank you, Mr. Shelton. Thank you, Moses. Again, thank you to Mr. Suah for giving us such an insight with the Liberty Party. Quick question. Do you have any mixed feelings, any doubts, or any uncertainties that this issue is finally going to go away? Or do you believe that there may be some sort of a legal recourse from Musability?
You got the question, Sua?
Yeah, I've been writing there some notes. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So
I
go
will
ahead and
start with
respond.
River Says Pro. I unfortunately I didn't listen to Dylan's program because I'm on this
Yeah.
show, so I don't know what context he spoke on. But what I do know is, regardless of whether Miss Ability's actions were based on purely on his convictions or was influenced by you know outside sources. To me, I try not to get involved in all of that. Right, I'm focused mainly on what are those actions, whether they were influenced by someone else or not. I will leave that for later discussions. But I'll focus on the actions, and I think the party has taken the appropriate reaction to everything that has occurred. We it is true. Everything that has happened over the last few months have been a distraction. It is true, per River Says Pro, that there are certain things that Councilor Brumsky envisioned, and I know this wasn't one of them. I can also verify that this will not be one of them. So, as an institution, we have to step up and recognize when we've gone wrong. I don't think we're gonna put any kind of mask on what's happening in the party that is good. I mean, there are some good silver linings, that we continue to engage using pen and paper. You didn't see people fighting in the street, so that's a plus. But other than that, yes, it's a distraction for our party. And those of us who are used to dealing with internal issues internally, it has become a challenge. We stayed internal for a very long time, and to some extent, nobody was hearing the work that was being done. Everybody felt they were hearing only from the one person who was in the media. And so that took the public one way. until we recognize that, okay, both of us are not playing the game according to the playbook that we know in Liberty Party. We're not rushing to the public. We're not engaging the public. We're trying to deal with this scheme. But now one party is really benefiting from the public PR and is running with it. So we need to switch things and bring that back to where we get back to Liberty Party as we knew it. And so
Thank you.
hopefully this process will lead to that.
Thank you. Another
And then
caller
to the
is on the
second
line.
question
Oh,
from Mr. Sumpum.
all right.
If
Just before you get to that question, let me just add this caller in quick. The
okay,
caller is there. Caller, you're calling from Pennsylvania. What's your name?
My name is Steve Quay.
Steve Quay. So
Yes.
this caller is Steve Quay. Just add that to your list, Mr. Suah.
okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. Obviously, Suah, it was nice seeing you on the show and explaining what happened. But I beg to differ. I want to find out from you the charge, the issue here is the leadership, people that were suspended, they did not pay their due. That is the issue. Forget about the person's character. It's in the party purview that people, members of the party, they pay a due or not, they should continue or there should be what we call consequences. I think that is the issue that we need to focus on because you have a political party that will be an alternative that is not paying their due for years. And when action is taken, they will say, oh, the man has criminal records. So is it true that these people that were suspended pay their due and this man, the chairman of the party, deliberately, try to suspend them? That's what I want to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Go
Okay.
ahead, Phil.
All right. So, well, let me go in reverse. Since his question is fresh, and I'll get back to Mr. Sumpums. So, I'm that example. I see Steve was mentioning if people have paid a due, and I stated that earlier. My dues were paid. I sent in the receipt. The treasurer of the party validated yesterday that indeed my dues were paid. I was still suspended for not paying dues. So that's one example for Mr. Quay, that it was, something was amiss. The list that was published, the party's constitution has two mentions of suspensions, right? Two mentions of suspensions. And those references were made with regards to consulting the advisory council before suspension. That's the two reference. Now, if you go into the statement that was changed, altered, or tampered with, like Vakana said, it was in that statement that the political leader in consultation with the NEC, the policies and all of that, that included things that should have come after the convention, categorizing who should pay what, what kind of dues. All of that should have come out of that language that needed to be corrected. So those issues were not resolved. Those are things that need to be paid. And you're right. We have not suspended anyone for paying dues before, ever, that I'm aware of, ever. As a leader, your role in such an organization is to inspire and motivate people, even if they're not paying dues, to assist in other ways. That's what you do as a leader. I was chairman of LPUSA for 8 years. There are people who never pay dues. I mean, that's the problem. But we didn't suspend anyone. We called people. We did all kinds of things. And sometimes they didn't pay dues. But guess what? They were on Facebook doing things that were beneficial to the party. So there are different things you can do to get people involved. If we were suspending everyone who paid dues, LPUSA would have very few members. Even LPUSA, right? People don't pay. A lot of people pay different ways. Sometimes we have these projects that pop up. Oh, we need money. People contribute. It's not on a due book like a due, but they're paying to do this project. You're paying to help with this program. So leadership, your role is not to just suspend people or punish people. You need to find ways where those people can be of value to the party. That includes paying dues, right? But that's not what we should be doing. And then Mr. Sumpon also mentioned if I was confident that this issue would go away. Well, that's for us to see, right?
Or maybe Billington might go to court.
I don't know. I mean, what I do know is that, the process was followed internally. So regardless of where this goes, that's what it falls back to. Whether you go to the court, someone goes to NEC, they're all going to revert to what is your process. All right. And based on what I'm told, based on what I've read, we have followed the process, the internal mechanisms in the party to reach the conclusion. I haven't seen where the political leader for this decision, violated the 2015 Constitution as of November 15, or the 2021 Constitution prior to November 15.
I know
So-
Moses want to come in so bad, but
Go
it
ahead.
just keep bothering
Go
me
ahead.
that you guys who have gone to the convention in 2021, knowing that you didn't have a quorum, and still go through the process to elect you as the national vice chairman here in the U.S., Billy as the chairman in Liberia, and other members to electoral positions, but you still didn't have you still didn't follow that 2015 Constitution. So,
So and that's a good
yeah,
point. That's
and
a
I'm
valid
still
point.
so
So
you dug your own hole, you dug
yeah,
your own
so
problem, and was it because again? We're coming to the political season. We want to be a part of the bigger picture, the CPP. So we want to have functioning, a functioning Liberty Party with all of its, pieces in place, and so that we all can come together. Or Mr. Billy got the money, he's influencing the process. Let's put him there as chairman, because at one point I heard that Mr. Dillon and Young Leader always, riding the same limousine, put it that way, if I should be figurative, and everything seemed to be merrymaking and everything was fine, knowing that the Constitution is the organic document that drives the organization. And so, Mr.
so
Suah, you benefited from the position. Now it's
so
nullified as a result of this constitution.
So, Volcano, yeah,
Yeah.
and one of the things you will recognize, I didn't shy away from it early, that this is an institutional problem. Everybody has to share some blame. We did have a constitution planning committee, a convention planning committee, that was tasked with ensuring the convention followed the procedures of the 2015 Constitution. That convention planning committee submitted the report and assured the party that all was well for the convention, right? So I'm not putting the blame on the committee alone. If this blame goes around, because we all as an institution should be able to step up and say we share some responsibility in where we are today. I don't think, at least for me personally, this is me blaming one person, Musa Ability, for everything that has happened in the party, right? I think that would be unfair. I think we all need to take some responsibility, whatever that percentage is. I've looked at my role as well. I felt like for me, I should have asked questions more. There were some concerns that I had raised, especially with the Constitution, because I saw the draft and some of the concerns with regards to the powers of the political leader. I raised those concerns before the convention, and I sent my perception that it was taken away from the powers of the political leader. I raised questions. It wasn't just me. I know the current chairman of LPUSA raised the same concerns. There's another gentleman who's a lawyer here, also raised the same concerns about powers of the political leader before the convention. So I take some responsibility maybe for not following up, for not.
And that's a fair
pushing more.
statement. That's a very fair statement. You're coming, Moses. Let me just take this caller in queue quick. You're coming. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. What's your name and where you calling from?
How you doing, guys? My name is Mr. Anderson. I'm calling from Philadelphia.
Welcome.
It's just laughable that I'm listening to Dillon. I just listened to Dillon advising the ANC. So definitely, let's say if the collaboration were on, and you guys have gone deep into so many documentation and a whole lot, I wonder what he would be saying by now, because I remember Dillon saying that the guy was Saul changed to Paul, or Paul changed to Saul, and he was defending the guy. Now he put the party into a very tough position. You know what I mean? My question to Mr. Suah, my understanding, I don't know where I'm getting it wrong or not. I want you to correct me. The 2015 Constitution was it something that had to do with the party being surrounded by being put into one trusted to one person? Was it something where one person is the one that can make the decision, and you guys move off to the 2020, I think 2021, 2022, the new constitution, the new one, constitution that drafted, and was that something that was not surrounded by one person, but they have to deal with everybody being involved? The two different constitutions. That's what I want to know. Whether 2015 was just built upon one person, and 2021 was no. Let's change and let's make it something so everybody can have a say or something like that. So can you
Thank you.
talk a little bit on that?
Thank you.
Yeah. So one of the items in the 2015 Constitution that some wanted to change was the power of the political leader to replace the executive committee members in non-election year. I think that was part of the 2015 Constitution. So the political leader had the power to change the executive committee members in non-election year. And if I'm not mistaken, that language was adjusted so that the political leader could only do that during an election year. Change the makeup of the executive committee. So that was a big issue. There were also, to the caller's point, there were people who felt that the role of the political leader had too much power, and some of that power needed to be shared with other parts of the organization, for example, the NEC.
Come in, Moses.
So, Mr. Suah, are you telling us, given the way the January 23rd elections were handled, are you telling us that Mr. Belity, because you guys refuse to follow the protocol, adhere to your own constitution, which requires a quorum, and that was also pushed aside, are you telling us that Mr. Belity, literally bribe his way through in becoming chairman of your party?
No, I cannot say
The
that
money,
because
the money changed hands.
I got zero evidence of any form of bribery that I could present to you. So I would not be saying that he bribed anyone, because I don't know. I don't know. I mean, he did become chairman of the party. People did vote for him. He didn't have another person contesting against him. Those are all facts, right? Everything outside of that, I'm unaware.
But then let me ask this question quick about the NEC. The NEC, quick. You come in. The NEC, you said there were 11 people who voted with everything happening, the suspension and all of that.
Yeah, I think 11 and one abstained.
So now, does he have certain group of people that he's dishing money up to in the NEC that making him powerful and siding with him? Do you suspect
I don't know.
that?
I try not to judge people's motive, right?
That's what I'm saying. But is there any suspicion?
I can't tell you here that I have suspicion, because if I have suspicion, then I have to show you proof and evidence, and I don't have those. Okay. So what I do know is that some people, historically, if you look at the records and how they voted or how they made their decisions, align with Mr. Belity. And you can say the same thing on the other side too, that some people align with Senator Lawrence or aligned against Mr. Belity. So I don't know people's motive. I have my motive. My motive in my decision making has always been what is in the best interest of Liberty Party, and that's how I vote. Primarily what's in the interest of Liberia. So with regards to Cummings or boycott, I feel either of the two is better than the current administration. So I feel the Liberia component is done for me. What I'm focused on next, besides that, is what's best for Liberty Party. And what's best for Liberty Party is to support a ticket that can defeat this government. That's my primary focus. Whether that comes through a Cummings presidency or Honorable Boykott's presidency, to me, that's secondary to me, as long as we have a ticket that can defeat Mr. Weah.
Okay, Mr. Suah, let me ask you this question before we take leave of you. Are you all current with your 2015 Constitution?
I mean, I don't know what version I can research.
Okay, I asked the question because I rather want you to help us understand what the Constitution says regarding our due payment. If someone doesn't pay his or her due, does that elevate to the level of suspension?
No, I just told you that at least the 2021
Mhm.
Constitution didn't have. It said that 2021 had two references that I noticed.
But the 2021 Constitution is no more, so let's not
Yeah,
dwell on
Yeah,
it because everything
2015.
was not.
Yeah.
2015.
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if I don't want to state that. I don't know for sure. I can search, but I don't know. But most of what we have in the 2021 or a good portion of it came out of the 2015. You know, and that's the reason why I'm referencing that.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I don't have the exact quote in the 2015 Constitution, but I know it mentioned good standing. All right, people who in good standing can vote. People who in good standing can do this, can file a complaint, and all that. But there was no reference of suspending anyone. That should have been a policy or a guidance document that came out of whoever should be setting the policies to run.
Mr. Suah, go ahead, Moses.
Yeah, quickly. What would you say about this special relationship with Mr. Ability and the ANC? What is going on here? Help us understand.
I don't know. I mean, this, and I got to make this clear. There's absolutely nothing wrong with Mr. Billy wanting to make Mr. Cummings standard bearer of Liberty Party. The same way there's absolutely nothing wrong with another member of Liberty Party wanting Mr. Boycott to be standard bearer, right? I think it's how you go about doing it. To me, that's my contention. I stated before, I got nothing against either of them being standard bearer. I mean, have some issues and concerns about them individually, but that's normal. I got issues about myself as well that I'm trying to resolve, right? So the issue here is we should establish Ms. Ability's desire, if that's his desire, to bring Mr. Cummings in as standard bearer. I don't have any issues. None. Zero. Same for Mr. Boycott, whoever is bringing Mr. Boycott. My issue is, as a Liberty partisan, our party cannot lose this election. We've lost many elections. We've been in opposition. It's difficult. Look, I've been in Liberty Party since 2007. It's extremely difficult to operate. And that's what sometimes, we get criticized as an institution. Some of the professional friends, we don't want to get in politics because of all of this. So you leave that burden with a few people. And then when decisions are made, we still complain. Oh, you guys are not making decisions. Well, to run a party requires resources, right? You have a press conference, the generators on, you got fundraisers, things that go on. A lot of our partisans don't have jobs because of the economic situations. So when you have a function, sometimes you provide transportation, provide food, you provide water, you provide different accommodations. Some of the partisans have personal family problems. You send money. It's a tremendous draw on resources. And I'm far away, and I sense some of that because I'm contributing. Imagine those who are actually carrying the burden. So this issue of the political parties, sometimes we stand from afar and we throw stones. That was the reason why I got involved personally, right? Because I had done the same thing, and then I recognized when I got the call from Councilor Brumsky, he made the pitch. Let's help move this thing forward. That was 2007. I still remember I was in San Diego for work, and a friend of mine had given him my number, and we called. He didn't tell me come join Liberty Party. Mr. Councilor Brumsky's pitch at the time was, look, let's put ideas together to help our country. That was the hook for me. Like, oh man, he's not asking me to come and join the party. He's asking me to use my brains, to come and help put things together. And that's what made our relationship strong, because it was always on what can we do differently,
So, Mr. Suah, hear what it is, and we'll say this will be your final question because we have to wrap up. And this question has to do with your internal structure of the Liberty Party. In any organization, we foresee that there will be dissension and sometimes disagreement.
Mhm.
Do you have a committee? Do you have a branch within the party to really manage and resolve this matter? Because between me and you, it is a risk for this party and the CPP going down this path. it was the CPP in disarray now. Is it the internal of the Liberal Party? And we see that ANC is now, looking like they're riding the wave now with ability, so many things. How do you guys resolve this at the Liberal Party level and at the CPP level to get back that organized relationship you've had to go after Mr. Weah presidency? Where do we go with this?
Thank you, and I apologize. The sun just changed direction on me,
I
so I had to
know.
adjust
I can
my
see. I can
computer.
Yeah,
see.
we can see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I mean, you're right. We have to resolve this issue within the party. And the way we're going to go about doing this is what we did before. We need to be able to speak even when we disagree. So there are a lot of people who are calling for, oh, this person should be moved from the party. Personally, my view is we need everybody discussing within the Liberty Party. One of the things I learned from Councilor Brunskin is, you don't want to keep malice, right, in politics. And I so many times I've seen him go through that. People who have offended him in so many different ways, still open arms, even behind closed doors. He didn't, seek to harm anyone or nothing. And I've known for, like I said, 2007, closely, we communicated a lot. I didn't learn that from him. So I'm not going to get into that either, because I see that's how he was able to carry on and maintain who he was as an individual outside of the politics, right? And so I take the same posture. So Liberty Party, as we go forward, we need to communicate, right? We need to settle some of our internal issues internally, and I'm hoping with this push of the reset button, we can go back and learn from where we all made mistakes. All right. And I have to say, we all made mistakes. I think it will be very unfair for us to say one person, one individual is the one who caused all of this problem in Liberty Party. That would be unfair. All right. I don't think it's Mr. Abilities alone to bear. We all have some portion to bear. And until we can do that, who knows? If we don't do the post-action review properly, we may repeat the same mistakes down the line. So we're not going to do that. We're going to be sincere, as we've had heated debates in Liberty Party, even when our founding father was alive. That's how we did it. I've disagreed with the councilor. I used to disagree with him a lot behind closed doors, right? But and that's what we're going to do. With the political leaders push of the reset button, we're going to disagree. And in places where she needs to be held accountable, we all would tell her, Madam PO, this is where we find that you didn't operate the way you're supposed to, and she has accepted some of our feedback. She's not opposed to that. The political leader doesn't give me oxygen to breathe. So I gotta be free to tell her what's on my conscience, and she has accepted some of the things we have stated. Behind closed doors, right? Which is where some of those discussions have to be. So I think we will get there. I think CPP will get there, even with our differences. The ANC people, I got a lot of respect for that organization. I got a lot of respect for some of the people that I know there personally. But you don't see me in there because my what I know personally, has nothing to do with what's good for the party. What's good for Liberty Party is Liberty Party we must support a winning ticket. Again, if that winning ticket is Honorable Boycott, man, we're on it. If it happens to be Mr. Cummings, we're on it. As long as we can climb a few rungs above the ladder that we're at now under this administration, to me, that's a win for Liberty Party. Because then, whether we're on the ticket, number one, number two, or we're not even on the ticket, we can still put our ideas in there, because now we're on the table, right? We're on the winning table. So Mr. Boycott is president or Mr. Cummings is president, we're still on the winning table. We can be pulling the jacket and say, hey, this is what we can do for healthcare. This is how we can probably grow this $500 some million budget to $1 billion. This is how we can reduce the recurring expenditure, which is almost 80%, of our budget. Our debt, what we service our debt every year, has jumped from 32 million to 49 million because of the increased debt that this government had added to the country. What could we do with $49 million a year that if we took from paying our debt to debtors and we're investing in healthcare, what could we do? If we're investing in developing the technical skills of the people who we call youth, the next generation. When I was in school, a lot of things I learned, the foundation was strong. My foundation was strong from elementary. I went to Cathedral, I went to Calvary Baptist, and before Calvary Baptist, I was in Amigashi as a kid, and I got into Cathedral all the way through high school. There are a lot of things I learned outside of just pen and paper. We don't have some of those opportunities now because the systems are not there. And until we can invest in the young men and women who will be sitting as Volcano Shelton, Moses Sandy, or Philip Suah 20, 30 years from now, we're going nowhere. That's what we need to be focused on. If the skill sets that are needed to build roads, the skill sets that are needed to create jobs, if we don't start investing in that generation, how are they going to do it? I gave an example on a different program a while back. Like, what advantage do we have as a country like Liberia? We are English-speaking country. I'm here in America. When I pick up the phone and call my credit card, or for my job, I call IT help desk or this other help desk. I'm routed to India. I'm routed to Australia, and they're speaking English. I'm like, man, no foul to them, but a Liberian could speak clear English, even if he or she hasn't been to America, and it could be, clearer. Our accent is not that strong. So what if we develop opportunities for people to play in that space, the customer service space, the IT space? But you can't pick up a phone and answer an IT-related question if you're not given the tools to know what to do. So that's where we can start putting the money into those young men and women.
So all of the things that you're lamenting here, we appreciate it, and we hope that you will solve the eternal problem, that you will solve the national problem as a party and as a conglomeration, so that we can foresee some of these things coming up in the future. But Mr. Suah, it was wonderful having you. We're hopeful that the matter will be resolved, and this is good for our country. Whether the Liberty Party or any party, if it even was the CDC in an internal rift, it's not good for our body politics, not for the leadership. So we say thank you so much for availing yourself. We say go and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll reach out to you again momentarily to see where this goes, and maybe there will be another reason for us to converge again to hold this discussion. But it was wonderful having you, and thanks for availing yourself to the issues room. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Suah. It was a pleasure having you.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Well, Moses, we usually don't do this, but again, the issues room was established for the purpose of bringing the issues to the light, enlighten our people, put their minds to the things that are happening. I thought this was a good conversation. Even though he made it very clear that some of those things he couldn't, answer for. But for the most part, he said that the problem is not just instability at this point; it's everyone, in the Liberty Party should be blamed. And I agree with him, because how can you go to a convention outside of your constitution, and then come back now, then you say you nullify everything? Come on now. Let also the
yeah, if we can, like you said,
that's why a lot of people think that money was played, man. Come on.
Yeah, but look, man. I mean, when I was doing my background searches, I realized that this 2021 convention was held behind closed door. I said, "What? How can you do that?" Like Mr. Suah
these
said,
are the kinds of things that we really need to be careful as a country, as a society. As institutions that are coming to set new, leadership.
You want to lead.
Yeah, talk
Yeah.
about all of the ills of the current leadership, you need to be trendsetters and role models, and not to say the
Absolutely.
least, have
Yeah.
a great deal of integrity. So
Yeah.
again, all of this is really going to hide this political climate. I
Yeah.
don't know how they're going to fix it. I don't know how, because again, from the indications and what the pictures show, Cummings seems to be enjoying it. I
Oh yeah.
mean,
He has
but
special
again, what he
relationship.
fails to realize is that he's a part of a conglomeration,
The
and
conglomeration.
anything happens in one party affects his party, affects the conglomeration. So I will
If
hope that they all can, you know, converge and have the kinds of discussion that will lay this to rest. Because I don't know if Bility is doing this in favor of the ruling party or in favor of Mr. Cummings. Either way, if he's doing it in favor of Mr. Cummings, then of course they're gonna have the CPP to deal with because they're all one conglomeration. If he's
but
doing it detrimentally to the CPP in favor of the ruling party, then it's another thing. But you know, there's always the hearsay. There's always information, but we are journalists. We can't say things that we don't have evidence to, and
yeah.
that's the issue with Liberia. We
Yeah.
we, we
And
can we can hear the stories, the low news seeping through the corridors, but then no evidence, and you can't base it on off of if you don't have
yeah.
the facts.
And quickly before we roll, there are speculations out there that Mr. Cummins of the ANC is to a greater extent behind the crisis in Liberal Party. And there are also allegations that the ruling party is bankrolling Musability, ensuring that the CPP doesn't hold. Who knows how credible these reports are? But we just hope that Liberia as a country will benefit in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you, Moses.
Mhm.
Thank you. So this is how we're going to leave you. We'll be back here on Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for coming through. Gonda Lekbe, Varti Sanon, Eskandakai Masale II, Steve Kwe, Boyi Avi. Thank you so much for joining our broadcast today. We say Lawrence Power, it was good having you in the house. Mizola Gizi, River says Pro, Thomas Awaji, Pastor John Bridges Jr. We say thanks for coming through. G. Isaac V. Gue, also Theo N. Sampong, Junior of New Jersey. It was good having you in the house with us today. Just good conversation. D. Banks. D. Banks was here with us, and Florence Kingsley. Continue to like our page, continue to share it, continue to invite someone to join us. It's a pleasure to have you, because without you, we wouldn't be here. It's not about the numbers. Again, I say it's about the content, it's about the conversation, the things we want to accomplish, and we can all do that together. Thank you so much for being here with us in the Issues Room. Volcano Shelton saying, have a good Sunday.